Yes, Keith, how's it going, mate? You alright?
I'm fine, yes.
Back by popular demand, people loved your first one. The people said they could listen to you all day.
Oh, I'm pleased to hear it, I mean, there's a lot of stories to tell about prison, over the years. And it always amuses me that people's conception of prison is totally wrong. I mean, everything they read in the Sun or the Daily Mail is generally pure fiction, as to what conditions in prison are like and what actual life in prison is like. And the whole thing is based on a storyline that could have come from Putin's Russia about the criminal justice system, because the criminal justice system simply doesn't work anymore. It is broken. And the conditions people are living in or existing in prisons is absolutely appalling. If you consider a prison cell, for example, a prison cell, the majority of them are brick built, and then they have a lining of a strengthened steel mesh, and then covered over with a skim of concrete. So you have concrete walls on three sides with a door, a concrete floor, a concrete ceiling, so they're automatically cold. They're generally underheated as well. I mean, some of them have large pipes running through that are supposed to provide adequate heating. They don't. And the majority of time, prisoners wear extra clothing within their cells.
And so I've got a question for you, Keith. So, what year did you go away?
I went away in 1989, August 1989.
And how long did you do in closed category A conditions?
In category A conditions, 26 years.
26 years.
Yes, I was a category A, what they call a high risk capital A, which is double cat A, and also for a period of a couple of years, perhaps as many as 5 years, I was AAA, which is how they rate most terrorists.
Yeah, and AAA, can you explain to people what AAA is? Because there's a lot to it, isn't there? And it's quite inhumane, isn't it?
Yeah, AAA is the highest category in English prisons. You're restricted to a few sites, what are called special security units or high security units. You have one in Whitemoor, one in Full Sutton, one in Franklin, I believe, one at Wood Hill at Milton Keynes, and these are people, typically, I mean, if you take the one at Full Sutton, it has 6 cells, of which 3 can be occupied at any one time, because they leave an empty cell between prisoners. And that's it. You are mixing with 2 other prisoners, or in the case of Whitemoor, where they have 14 cells, you can be mixing with up to 5 other prisoners, sometimes 6, depending on how they allocate it.
And this is for how years and years period of time?
This is years and years, and basically they're prisons within a prison. You have an exercise yard which is not much bigger than the average living room, and you're under constant surveillance.
So what is that like, living like that? I mean, what do they do to your health and your mind, your mental state?
Your mental state depends on. I mean, some people can't take it. My own view of it is I just drifted along. I took each day as it came and reacted to nothing. So,
do you think that's like was that already your character, that you had that strength, or did you build that strength by decision and choice in prison?
No, I've always been easygoing, but the attitude that I had was you just let things flow past you.
Try not to let it get to you, yeah?
Yeah, you don't take anything to heart. So if you had a a screw who was a bit of an arsehole, deliberately went out of his way to annoy you or things like that, you just ignored him and let it flow past you. I mean, it's do not get excited or
Animated.
or annoyed at the behaviour of some of the prison officers.
And is that for self-preservation? Is it?
It's self-preservation, but it's also a good attitude to have through life. I mean, people get wound up about the smallest things. I mean, you've only got to watch, a road rage caught on camera, and you find that they're absolutely ridiculous arguments.
A lot of people run too much on emotion, don't they?
This is it. You can't run on emotions if you're in prison. You basically have to. A lot of people escape into drugs, which of course is another way of letting life flow past you.
Yeah.
And they spend a lot of their time out of their box, either completely out of it or doing stupid things while under the influence of drugs.
No, yeah, I get that. Well, what I want to do is ask you a question, right? I'll go right back to the start. So when you first got sent to prison, because this is your only prison sentence you had, isn't it?
Yes, this is it. This is my first time and last time in
What
prison.
was it like when they first closed that door on you? Was you an A-man from the start?
Yes, more or less, yes. Yes, I spent from August till January in Lewis Prison, which is a B category. So I shared a cell with a con man who had been involved in insurance fraud. That wasn't too bad. I actually met Reggie Kray in Lewis.
What's Reggie like?
In 1990. I didn't get to know him that well. I mean, he sort of drifted around doing his own thing. He spent a lot of time in education. He played with computers. He didn't speak to many people. And he was treated as very much a special case. I mean, he had his own visiting room where his visitors could come and visit him. He didn't mix with prisoners in the visiting hall. So he was basically given an easy ride at Lewis.
He would have been, what, 20, 30 years into his sentence by then?
He'd been well into his sentence, particularly how long I don't know, you know. No, he was quite affable. As I said, you know, there was no problem to anybody and just used to do his own thing.
Oh, cool. Whilst we're on the subject then, there's a few other famous faces you knew from the 60s, 70s and 80s, isn't there? So you knew Eddie Richardson, is that right?
I knew Eddie Richardson. What you have to understand about the high security system, and I'm talking exclusively about the high security system, is it's a very small population of prisoners.
It's like it's a members only club, isn't it?
It is like a members only club. The same faces, you get moved from prison to prison, but you meet the same faces. And I used to say that no matter which prison I went into, I'd always know half a dozen people the moment I walked through the door, and that has proved to be true. Some people have short stays in high security. They're very often, you know, while they've investigated to see if they've got the money to fund an escape or something like that. But most people in high security are there for years. Any high-profile case of any type, you're liable to find yourself in high security. Yes, I met Eddie Richardson in jail. I met him in Parkhurst.
Is this before or after you escaped?
Sorry?
Is this before or after you escaped?
This is before the escape. And he was working on his appeal for a drugs conviction that involved him using computers and so forth. And I said to him one day, I said, you raise everything you've done, Eddie, but do you realise that somebody can actually go back in and unerase it, you know? And he immediately jumped down my throat and said, what do you know? What do you know about computers? You know, how would you know? And I said, well, it's a fact. And the thing about Eddie Richardson is that he's one of these people who lives on his reputation in the press. Right? I found him arrogant and totally stupid because his whole demeanour was, I'm Eddie Richardson, I'm special, I'm a famous name, I'm as well known as the Krays. And of course, in reality, he is a nobody.
Right, okay.
He's a nobody. His conviction for drug dealing was entirely his own fault.
Okay.
Apparently, he used to make. He didn't use his phone in his scrapyard. He used to go to the telephone box outside his scrapyard in the belief that they wouldn't bug a public phone, which of course was bugged. And his arrest involved the takedown of a very important man from Bogota called Antonio Diablo Teixeira,
Oh, wow.
or Eric Schultz,
Okay.
or Eric Royston.
Right, so we had all these aliases.
He had more aliases than you've had hot dinners. He's an interesting character, by the way. I mean, he is one of the most positive people I've ever met in prison. He was high up in the Bogota cartel, but primarily dealt with money. And the reason he came to this country was he was based in Paris, and the reason he came to this country was to help Eddie Richardson actually transfer money into Colombia, because Eddie, being arrogant and ignorant, didn't know how to do it.
Right, okay.
So Eric, he's generally known as Eric rather than Antonio Diablo Teixeira. Eric was an extremely clever man. He was very intelligent, very well educated. The question of his origin is, was he Colombian? And another drug dealer called Brian Doran, who used to be a language teacher, one day said to Eric, at Full Sutton prison, which is a high security prison, he said, Eric, he said, you claim to be Colombian. He said, but when you speak Spanish, he said, you don't speak with with a Colombian accent. He said, you speak Portuguese. He said, but you don't speak with a Brazilian accent. He said, you speak French. He said, but you don't speak with a French accent. He said, we all know how shit your English is. He said, but when you speak Russian, he said, you speak with a Moscow accent.
And who's this? Who said this?
Sorry?
Who said this again?
Brian Doran. Brian Doran actually tackled him.
And Brian Doran is?
It was a language teacher and in a past life, and was a drug dealer as well.
Right.
So obviously he knew his accents. And Eric was a little bit put out to be exposed as actually of a Russian origin.
Wow.
But obviously, I mean, he was probably ex-KGB and so forth. But an extremely, extremely intelligent man. He now lives in Brazil, I believe, in Sao Paulo, or one of those big cities. You know.
So how long did he get? He was the money launderer for the drugs cartels of Colombia.
Yes, he started off with about a 25-year sentence.
Was it anything to do with Escobar?
Oh, definitely.
So
he knew
was
Escobar.
Escobar.
He knew Escobar. He could tell tales of Escobar. He didn't open up in the sense of give away any secrets. He kept his mouth shut, kept his head down, did his prison sentence, and got well rewarded by the cartel when he got out. I don't know how much they paid him in a lump sum, but I know they paid him a heavy lump sum and paid for him to go on a trip around the world, where he went to countries like Russia, like Ukraine, and was sending postcards to me from all over the world, you know, because I was very friendly with him. Perhaps the funniest postcard he sent me was from Colombia, and it had a picture of a mule train going over the Andes Mountains, and the caption was, "You see, we do have modern transportation in Colombia." There's another story concerning Eric, which is the nature of his return to Colombia. The story is that he had 3 extradition warrants. One was from Argentina, one was from Ecuador, and one was from Colombia. Right? And the British authorities said, "We're not going to send him to Argentina because his son is a deputy in the Argentinian Senate. Right? We're not going to send him to Ecuador because he owns a chocolate factory in Ecuador, firstly. He has contacts in the Ecuador government, and he will get a more lenient sentence than he would as a narco-trafficante in Colombia. So we'll send him to Colombia." Right? So Eric is deported to Bogota, turns up in the airport with UK security, border force personnel, and is handcuffed. And there is a captain of police and about 6 armed policemen, Colombian policemen, waiting for him. And when he appears, the captain says to the British team, "Take the handcuffs off." Right? So they take the handcuffs off, and the police captain says to Eric, "Off you go, Mr. Teixeira, your car is waiting for you." And the story is, all 3 extradition warrants had been arranged by the cartel. Of course, we have no way of knowing if that's true, but it actually matches the nature of the cartel and Eric himself as a individual.
The power they had was unbelievable, wasn't it, in South America?
Oh, definitely.
What year was this when all this happened?
It's going back probably about 12 years ago. That Eric was released.
How long did he do when he was arrested in the 90s, wasn't it? 80s?
He went to the appeal court. In fact, Eddie Richardson and Eric and their co-defendants actually went up to the appeal court at the same time. As I said, I think Eric was originally doing a 25-year sentence, but at the appeal court they reduced that to 21. Another co-D also got a reduction in his sentence, and Eddie Richardson came up for his reduction in sentence, and they said to him, "You're Eddie Richardson, what do you want? Go." And they gave him nothing, which of course upset him even more. But that's the way the cookie crumbles. If you have a reputation, you can't expect much from the judicial system.
No, can you? No, it gets like that. Once they've got it in for you, they've got it in for you. Look what it did to you. They moved you around, but it's supposed, didn't they, to destabilise your happiness and then your settlements, your prison sentence.
They are unseemingly cruel, the prison service, up to quite high level. And
I remember when you said about one thing I picked up on our last interview about the escape was when your family member died, wasn't it? When just after Parker's, because you embarrassed them, they really just wouldn't allow you to do anything, would they?
Well, that's right. I mean, my son died. I was in the punishment block at Whitemore at the time. This is July 1995. And my son died, he drowned. And the immediate reaction of the prison service was to deny me the use of a phone for more than 6 months.
I mean, your son just died.
My son had just died. And from the day that they told me my son had died, they wouldn't let me use the phone. They always had an excuse. Right? And it was just
because you embarrassed them.
This is because in January 1995 it escaped from Parkhurst. And which caused huge upset to the prison system. So this was the prison service having revenge on me in a way that did.
And what I pick up on is if we behave that way, say a person, a normal member of society, a prisoner, you know, you're not supposed to seek revenge. You're not supposed to hold grudges, you know. So, but on the other, when the shoe's on the other foot, this is the prison service. You've embarrassed them. You've escaped. You've shown up a lot of people. It's become personal now, and you think, you know, there's lengths revenge goes to, and denying you see it, speaking to your family and going to the funeral of your son. It's just that's beyond, isn't it?
Well, this is it.
I'm sorry that happened to you, man. I'm really.
No, it is a way of life. I mean, for example, I have never visited my son's gravesite.
Is it because of this, or?
Well, I've been denied permission all the time, and I'm still banned from Devon, so I can't actually go back and.
Not even escorted.
Not even escorted or anything. I mean, it is an inhumane ban, but it's how the system works. The system works like that. I mean, I'll give you another example. You've probably heard of the Essex Boys.
Yeah, Essex Boys.
The Essex Boys, the two that I know were Mickey Steele.
Who got done for the murders, wasn't it?
Yeah, they got done for the murders of 3 other drug dealers. Both Jack Worms and Mickey Steele have consistently proclaimed their innocence and fought, you know, and denied their conviction. They've maintained their innocence throughout. Now, like myself, Mickey Steele fell foul of Richard Vince, who was the director of High Security, and probably still is, for all I know. And Richard Vince is one of these people who takes personal exceptions to individuals. I was one of them. Right? He took exception to me because of the Parker escape, and he took exception to Mickey Steele. And the result is, speaking today, Mickey Steele is in Franklin Prison, aged 80 years old, as a Category A prisoner. Right? His co-defendant, exactly the same charges, Jack Worms, was released from prison, right, as a Category D, sent to open conditions and released about 6-8 years ago, right? And the sole reason that Mickey Steele is still ACAT is because of the revenge mentality of Richard Vince. And Richard Vince did the same thing to me. He tried to keep me ACAT as long as we could, as long as he possibly could, and denied every opportunity for me to progress. And in the end, I was forced to go to the High Court in a form of a judicial review and get reduced to a Category B. Yeah. Otherwise, I would be in the same position as Mickey Steele is. And if you consider that Mickey Steele has served his tariff, which is the punishment awarded by the court, and should be progressing at 80 years old, he is no danger to society. He's no danger to anybody, yet he is rated Category A. And it's nonsense.
Especially when he's innocent.
He's maintained his innocence throughout, and I think that's one of the things that irritated Richard Vince. You know, I spent a lot of time with Mickey Steele over the years. People in prison are completely different to that, the way they're portrayed in the press or in the media generally. Take Kenny Noye as an example. Kenny Noye has got this reputation of being an informer. Right? Now this is fiction created by the Sun. Why? I don't know. Again, it's the revenge mentality.
And you two are quite close friends.
We were quite close friends, yes.
So you've got it on good authority that is false, yeah? That is, yeah.
Definitely. I mean, you have to remember, right? We're talking about Category A prisoners, right? When the story first appeared, Kenny Noye was AAA, right? Exceptional risk prisoner.
Explain what AAA is, because that's really interesting. I understand what it is, But I know, like, you know, so the 20-minute watches and the moving cells. Can you please explain the whole thing?
Yes, I mean, basically you're under such close to scrutiny that every 20 minutes a prison officer fills in a report what you're doing. If you're drinking a mug of tea, he writes down you're drinking a mug of tea. If you're talking to somebody, he talks about it. You have nightly checks throughout the night.
The light on as well, isn't it?
They turn the light on. Again, it's part of the punishment. You know, we turn the light on, it disturbs your sleep. You know, 20 minutes later they'll do it again, 3 times an hour.
It's a bit like torture.
Oh, it is intended to be. It is intended to be. It's nothing to do with security. It is purely
Torture.
yes, the regime. You know, and you can't appeal against it. One of the unfortunate things about prison officers is they always say, it's written down, we have to follow the rules. In reality,
what's their opinion on it over the years? Do they agree, disagree?
I don't. I think they just go with it. I mean,
have you ever asked the prison officer what do you think this is right, and what do they say?
No, I've never had that much in-depth. The only person I've ever had an in-depth conversation with about the prison system is a former gym screw called Phil Kray.
Yeah, Phil Kray,
who I've known for probably 30 years.
You wrote a book and had the space in the book for your escape, didn't there?
Yes, he's written a book called Life of a Gym Screw.
Passed away, God bless him.
Yes, unfortunately he died of terminal cancer last year, but a really nice chap, easy to approach to, quite funny. I had a lot of conversations with Phil over the years, and he disagreed with much of what the prison service do, but of course he's a lone wolf.
Yeah.
You know, howling in the darkness. But going back to Kenny Noy, when the story appeared about Kenny Noy being an informer, he was in the unit at Whitemore with me, the SSU, the Special Security Unit. Also there was Mickey Steele, a couple of Turks, one of which was called Eggy, I don't remember the name of the other one, and a Brazilian police captain who had got involved in the drug trade, called Soares. So who would Kenny inform to, and about whom? Right? We're exceptional risk prisoners. We're being examined every 20 minutes. Right? Where could he possibly add anything to what the staff are doing anyway?
So was his reputation of being an informant just solely in prison?
I think the son hoped he'd get beaten up or something like that,
right, okay.
or stabbed or whatever. The son definitely didn't like him. Right? Neither did obviously.
Some like the phrase lags, don't they? Lags.
Lags, yes. I mean, they like lags. But they, with Kenny, he had a not guilty for killing a police officer. Right? Now, regardless of the circumstances of that, the son has always made the point he got off with it. He didn't get off with it. He was acquitted because the police tried to fake evidence during the trial. And it's quite common, you know, I mean, it's being exposed today about police corruption. But in a lot of cases, they help the evidence along.
That's their phrase of, we help the evidence along, isn't it?
They help the evidence along, you know, and they add a little bit to it. And in Kenny Noy's trial for the killing of the police officer, they overdid it, and they got caught, and that is what you never hear about.
Right.
So the son has pursued a policy of always portraying Kenny Noy in a bad light. In actual fact, Kenny is quite an affable character when you're dealing with him on a day-to-day basis. He's very friendly. He doesn't mix with a great deal of people, you know.
Kenny Noy is the man responsible for the Bring Smart, isn't it? Was he accused of that?
He was definitely involved in the Bring Smart, and he was not actually involved in the robbery. He was involved in disposing of the gold, and of course.
And that's when the police officer thing happened, wasn't it?
this is true. This is when the police officer happened. He got acquitted of the murder of the police officer, but actually convicted of handling the Brinksmack gold and what have you.
Which was a significant amount, may I add.
Ah, that's right. I mean, there's still
They never found it all of it. They never found it all.
No, they never found it. I don't think they found half of it. I mean, again, I know all the Brinksmack guys.
Did you know
Mickey McAvoy,
Yeah.
Tony White, right? And of course Kenny himself. Yes, I know them all. You know, they're all
friends of yours?
yes. Well, obviously you have to class them as friends. You're in daily contact with them. You talk perhaps 100 times a day to them. They know your story. You know their story. You know the ins and outs of their daily life. What other else could you call them but friends?
Exactly, yeah. Because you was like you said, you were in that small club of A, AA, AAA cat prisoners for a very long time. So you know all the faces and the high-profile criminals from all the area, isn't it?
Well, this is it.
And,
I mean, you know
80s,
everybody
90s,
from,
and the noughties.
yeah, you know everybody from terrorists or what are classed as terrorists, right down to you know the guy that has come in for money laundering or.
So I will ask you a question. So you're not a violent man, I don't think. You know, knowing you. What's it like on them units sometimes? You know, is it volatile? Is it?
No.
It's far from it, I've heard.
In the high security, it is very quiet. I mean, if we take Parkhurst before the escape, right? There was one wing of Parkhurst, which was, I think, G Wing, which was run by London gangsters.
Yeah, you said that in the previous podcast about the escape.
Yes, because it's a fact. And the staff were so relaxed about the lack of trouble on this particular wing, they didn't even bother to sit out on the landing. Normally, if you have an open wing, you know, which is generally rows of cells, quite a big area, you will have a couple of screws sat at a table where they can observe the whole of the area, right? And that is in addition to camera coverage, and you may just have 2 screws, you may have 4, you may have 6, depending on where it is. But at Parkhurst they had none on that G-wing at the time. And they used to go and sit in the office because they knew that the London gangsters would actually
Police the landing.
Police the landings themselves, you know. And there was no trouble, there was no issues of any kind, you know. And if you compare that with what happens today, I mean, it is a different, completely different. I mean, as each government has come in, or each new justice secretary has come in, or each new home secretary has come in, they clamp down on security to the point that I think the British penal system now more closely resembles what's happening in Putin's Russia than it does in any other civilized country.
So basically you're saying that from when you went to prison in the 80s till when you was released recently, that it's got worse, but for no benefit for the system.
It is no benefit to the system.
It's only more draconian and more restrictive, and the benefits for what that probably costs, what it actually achieves, are very minimal. Is that what you're saying?
Well, there are no benefits. Let's actually take the facts. There is no such thing as rehabilitation in prison. Anybody who says there's rehabilitation in prison is lying. All right? What there is in prison is resentment, right? And it is resentment at the way they're treated, right? Which causes people to reoffend. And when they reoffend, when they're in prison, it's like going to college. You learn new techniques, you learn new crimes, you talk to people, they tell you how they've done this, where they went wrong, so you become a better criminal.
It's a university for criminals, isn't it?
It is a university for criminals.
Right? And that is well known as well. They know that happens.
Oh, they know it happens, but of course it's not, covered in the media, is it?
No, it's not.
So anybody who says they've been rehabilitated in prison are basically lying.
It's not the prison that does it, is it? It's yourself. If you want to change yourself. I mean, I've heard this in a lot of podcasts I watch. I've got some guests coming on in the next few weeks, which are really, which did that themselves. They set up social enterprise companies. They had enough of their own behaviour. The prison didn't do that. So some can argue that prison, losing your freedom, the time to think, reflect, and having that treatment is what it's there for. But it's not how it's being sold to the public, is it? So they're selling it to the public that it's there to rehabilitate, but it's not. It doesn't actually rehabilitate unless you choose for it to do that. And basically, it's the bare bones of what's happening in them places isn't enough, is it?
No. In reality, the people who can claim to have rehabilitated in prison are those people who have done it themselves. Where you reach a point where you think, do I want to come back to this place or do I not? And I've heard this so many times, and people say, I don't want to come back, so what do I have to do to stay out of prison? And it is their own thinking, nothing to do with the system at all, right? The system is psychology crazy, right?
And these are the courses which the behaviour change courses, which were, when did they come in? You're quite knowledgeable.
Yes, I mean I remember when I first went into Full Sutton, which was I think 1995. They had 2 psychologists, right? I was moved around the system and landed back in Full Sutton, which is near York, but that's maximum security as well. And they had 30 psychologists. 30. So many that they'd taken over an education block as their offices.
Why is that?
And it's because psychology suddenly became fashionable.
And they think it's a science, don't they? But it's actually only an opinion, isn't it?
It's an opinion. I mean, the nonsense about psychology in prisons is they take young girls, right, and they're mostly women who do this job, who are literally straight out of university, very young, no life experience, who have followed these psychology guidelines, created these courses that are supposed to be, effective, rehabilitation.
Cures, basically.
Right.
Cures, isn't it? Cures from offending behaviour.
That's it. But every so often, with some of these, some of these courses, I mean, there was one called R&R, which stood for Reasoning and Rehabilitation, right? And then it changed its name because it was marked as a failure. And all that happens with these courses is when they are marked down as a failure, they change the name of the course. The course continues.
Tweak a little bit.
Sorry?
And tweak a few of the...
They tweak a little bit, but it is essentially the same course.
And you're quite knowledgeable of how much this costs, aren't you?
Oh, it's horrendous.
Yeah, so explain to the people listening how much this
the average
experiment costs.
The average psychologist, junior psychologist, is paid anything between 30,000 and 45,000 a year, and that's in their first few years. And they are marked by their, I have to say, incompetence.
Right. Okay. Strong words.
And they are. If you ask somebody who's undergone and passed a psychology course, you say to them, "How did you do it?" And the answer is always the same. I told them what they wanted to hear,
right,
and that is it. And of course, because they have no life experience, because they are, basically novices in life, they tend to believe these prisoners who will actually manipulate the system. I mean, you've got a classic example, which is Usman Khan, right?
Oh, with the London Bridge man.
The London Bridge man, the Fishmongers Hall, Westminster Bridge, right, who stabbed two University of Cambridge students who were trying to help him. Right?
It's unbelievable what he did, isn't it?
But this is very personal to me because I know Usman Khan. I was on the same wing with him at Whitemoor, right? He was somebody who I used to talk to because I talk to anybody.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah.
And I'm very easygoing. I mean, we didn't have in-depth conversations or anything like that because immediately you started talking to him, he was trying to convert you to Islam, right? So I knew what a militant he was. I knew how fixated he was. And let's be honest about it, Whitemoor is a university for extremism.
Right,
That's
okay.
what it is. The Muslim contingent of Whitemoor are the most extreme you could imagine.
Did they ever try recruiting you or
Oh, yes.
recruiting
Yeah.
or
Yes.
converting you? Yeah. How
Yeah.
did you deal with that?
I just basically say I'm not interested.
And was you not targeted or?
No, I again, because of my reputation, you know, having escaped from Parkhurst
Right.
and being regarded as somebody who,
You had good friends and.
yeah, wasn't a grass, was straight with everybody, didn't do anything untoward to other prisoners or anything like that. So I was regarded as somebody safe that people could talk to.
Because there's some other prisoners which get targeted by them, isn't there? Like they actually get attacked, don't they?
Oh, yes. Well, I mean, if you're a young prisoner coming into Whitemoor, right, you will be approached by one or two Muslim guys together, and they will say to you, "Are you Muslim?" And if you say no, then they say, "What religion are you?" Right? And they would then say to you, you know, you should, you know, especially if you're black or Asian, right? You know, if you're an ethnic minority, they are going to target you ever harder. So they will say to people, well, it would be better for you if you became a Muslim, right? And they will put pressure on, and you may get queuing for your food and you jostled and the plate goes on the floor.
A little bit of tiny minor bullying.
Minor bullying, right? Now, if you agree to convert, you're love bombed. Now, love bombing is a phrase from Scientology, which basically means they will give you meals, you're always surrounded by friends, they will keep you they will keep you in their close knit.
Well, you become a brother. They call each other brothers, don't they?
Yeah, they call each other brother. Yeah, Aki, a brother. But you'll become part of their group, right? And the group is so extreme, it is basically a cult.
Right.
Right?
Strong opinion, that.
It bears no relation to normal Islam or the Muslim followers. It is purely extremism. And Usman Khan was heavily involved in that. Heavily involved in that.
And you're surprised, basically, what I'm reading from this conversation is you're surprised he was ever given release, or?
Well, he was on the University of Cambridge Learning Together course. That was what it was called. And I also did the Learning Together course and became a mentor for it. So I studied with the University of Cambridge in exactly the same way that Usman Khan did. Ironically, I was invited to go to Fishmongers Hall. Right? I have the invitation.
You still have that?
I still have the invitation. Right? But I decided not to go. Basically because about 2 years previous to Fishmongers Hall, I was invited to go to the University of Cambridge itself to give a talk on technology in prisons. It was called Talking Technology. And I was at Swellside Prison on the Isle of Sheppey at the time as a B category prisoner. No, I beg your pardon. I was a C category prisoner. I'd been reduced to C category. So I asked the governor if I could go, and he said yes, not a problem. You know, you'd have to be escorted, but you can go and give your talk. It would be good publicity for the prison, right? And that was about 6 months before the actual event at the University of Cambridge. And then 2 weeks before the event was due to happen, I was told, no, I couldn't go because you'll be eating at Nando's in the high street, which was pure fiction. So they cancelled it, 2 weeks before. So when I was invited to Fishmongers Hall, as a CCAT prisoner, but in Coldingley now, at Woking in Surrey, I thought, well, they're just going to do the same thing again. They're going to say, yes, you can go, and then suddenly they're going to cancel it. So I'm not even going to bother applying. Now, the thing that has always bugged me, and it has actually worried me to this day, is if I had gone, I'd have been escorted. I'd have had two prison officers with me, right? And I would have seen Usman Khan there. And I'd basically say to him, what the hell are you doing here? Because I knew he was an unreformed militant, and
so basically you're saying that someone really dropped the ball on this one.
Oh yes, and it was psychology that dropped the ball. Psychology said that the thing is about Usman Khan is, I believed, as I think most people did believe, that he was doing sort of 20 years plus, and we didn't realise that he was doing such a short sentence, something like 7 years, and he had to serve half or something like that. So the psychology department, right? He basically told them what they wanted to hear. So they have cleared him to go on this learning together course, right? And mixed with, a dozen, 2 dozen universities of Cambridge students. I mean, we are talking about the brightest people in the land. And you've got a junior psychologist who's saying this man is risk-free.
So he must have been really good at what he did.
Oh, yes.
Really manipulative.
Yes, but they practice, don't they?
But after that, there was a big changes made after that, wasn't there? Like with the, I think they brought in the polygraph testing, then they brought in other stuff. I'm not an expert on what they did, but they made a big change, that didn't it? And they're on about terrorism. I don't know the ins and outs. Do you know about what changes they made after that? Because there was quite significant changes, wasn't it?
Well, I don't know what security changes were made. I know that the events on Fishmongers Hall destroyed the reputations of the two academics who ran the course, and they were basically good people. Yeah. And they got castigated by the press.
And it's awful because they were trying to help us, weren't they, as well?
Exactly, they were trying to help prisoners, and their courses were very successful.
Yeah, and it was one extreme character.
That's it.
And they really put a lot of faith in him, and that's what he did. It's a shame, isn't it? And the problem is with our society, it's blanket punishment and blanket reactive. It's always reactive, isn't it? So now, we'll stop this, we'll stop that. Someone's has got to go on the board. Someone's got to get guillotined. And it's wrong, really, isn't it? It was a mistake made by people. People died. They had to live with that, didn't they? So it's such a shame, really. And then now that because of one man's actions, isn't it?
Oh, that's right. I mean, one of the things that I always remember as a memorable event was a prison officer at Franklin Prison, which is, as you know, Durham, another high security prison, was attacked with a Worcester sauce bottle, right? And the guy who did it was called Thacker,
The two brothers, wasn't it?
Sorry?
It wasn't the two brothers.
Yeah, she's one of two brothers. This is Mikey, I think, Mikey Thacker. Whether he had justification for it, because I know he was being given a hard time at Franklin, I don't know. But he attacked a prison officer with a Worcester sauce bottle, the small one, not the big one. And as a result, the prison service reacted by removing every single piece of glassware in every prison in the country. One event, mass punishment, right? To the extent that basically you are surrounded by plastic, right? And the substitute was plastic. And if you hear about the dangers of microplastics and the cancer causing microplastics, and yet prisoners are forced to use plastic every day.
I've seen somewhere written they reckon the waste the prison service makes could wrap the world 8 times a year. That is.
This is true.
It's 8 times around the world because apparently everything's plastic, isn't it? Everything's in plastic.
Everything's plastic. Your knife, your fork, your plate, your cup, your spoon. It's all plastic.
All the packaging is plastic. Cause, I mean, I know we have that in society as well, but I mean, what I've been told is you can be given 3 tea bags in your hand, but it has to come in a plastic bag for some reason.
That's right.
And it's just unnecessary overuse of plastic, I've heard. Is that true? Yeah.
It's absolutely true. I mean, they do tea rations in. Nobody drinks prison tea bags generally.
Didn't they used to have bromide in the parlour? Is that true? Do you know about that?
No, I don't know anything about that, but allegedly.
Allegedly, yeah.
It's one of the stories. There's so many stories concerned with prisons as well that they're untrue. But nobody that I know of drinks prison tea bags. They would rather buy their own because the prison tea bags are frankly appalling, right? But they still put 3 tea bags in a little plastic bag and give it to people as a daily ration. What is the point of it, right? Give them a box of 40. If you want to use cheap and nasty tea bags, get cheap and nasty bags, but give them a cardboard box of tea bags.
Which can be recycled.
Yes, and it's utterly pointless putting 3 tea bags into a bag. But of course, then those 3 tea bags go into another bag, which has got milk powder and sugar in it. So that's another plastic bag. So you have a plastic bag inside a plastic bag, right? And then if you have, say, a ration of cornflakes, then they are to put in a plastic bag and put in the bigger plastic bag. And so you end up with perhaps up to about 5 different plastic bags in a big plastic bag.
In a bigger plastic bag.
Yeah.
So basically, this is why the plastic waste from one prison can go around the world 8 times. That's one prison. How many prisons do we have in the UK?
I think it's about 80.
So basically, quick maths. So one prison, which I seen an article about, their plastic waste can go around the world 8 times.
Yeah.
That's one prison. What's 8 times 8?
Oh, there you go. It's 6,400, something like that.
So the plastic waste of the prison service goes around the world 6,400 times. Ballpark figure.
Yeah, and that's the other thing that
unbelievable.
The other thing that the prison service was supposed to do was generate a pile 43 feet, 43 miles long or 43 miles high in paper waste every year.
Yeah.
The amount of paper, because everything has to be written down, and the amount of paper used is incredible. I mean, the other thing about prisons is they're so scared of technology that you can't wear a smart sports watch.
Oh, smartwatch, yeah.
Yeah. They regard those as
they're very afraid
taboo.
Aren't they, of moving forward, aren't they? So what? I could talk to you for hours, Keith, because you're just so knowledgeable in that. Like it's like sitting with, it's like we sit here, even though we record it for other people to enjoy. I reckon I'm going to meet you at least once a month, every 6 weeks. We can just talk about this stuff. There's one thing I wanted to ask you is what you got. The one thing you did in prison was educate yourself, wasn't it?
Yes.
So that is probably one of the only perks of the prison system is that if you try hard enough, you can get educated, can't you?
Oh yes. I mean, unfortunately, that's changed as well. I mean, I have 2 degrees.
Yeah. Which you achieved in prison, yeah?
Yes, which I achieved in prison. I'm a BA Hons and a BSc Hons. And then on top of that...
In which?
Sorry, the BA Hons is in music. The BSc Hons
That's quite ironic considering we're in a music studio.
It's true. And the BSc is in environmental science. But I also have...
It's been lovely chatting to you today. We've run out of time, mate. We've really run out of time. I couldn't believe that we're in this music studio. Someone else wants to use it. But we're definitely going to do another podcast. Definitely.
Yeah, we will.
Keith, it's always great to see you, mate.
Yeah.